Okay, so this video is about target 2. We're looking at piecewise functions, which are exactly what they sound like. They are functions that basically come in different pieces. So for the first function, I can see that this is defined in two different parts. One part if my x value is less than 0, and the other part if my x value is greater than or equal to 0. So if I'm finding f of negative 2, then I'm looking at this first one because my x value or my input is less than 0. So that means I'm going to replace x with negative 2 in that first piece of the function. So my answer there will be negative 1. Next I see f of 0, so I have to think which piece am I using. So I'll use the second piece where x is greater than or equal to 0. So wherever I see x, I'm replacing it with 0. So then I get 7. And for part C, finding f of 3, I'm going to use that second piece again. Okay, so that's evaluating piecewise functions. In number 2, we're going to graph piecewise functions, and there are a couple different ways to do this. I'm going to do it by making tables. So I'm going to take this first piece here. I'm going to make a table of x and y values. Remember, f of x and y are the same thing. All right, so I see in that piece that x is less than negative 2, so I'm going to pick a few values less than negative 2, so I'll do negative 4, negative 3, and negative 2. Now, I want technically values less than negative 2, so that means add an x value of negative 2, I'm going to put an open circle. So I'll put that here too. And in the other piece, I want x values greater than or equal to negative 2, so at that point, I'm going to put the filled in circle because I'm including negative 2. All right, so let's go back to the first piece. In my table, I have an x value of negative 4. So if I do negative 4 plus 3, that gives me negative 1. Then I'm going to do negative 3 plus 3, that gives me 0. Negative 2 plus 3, that gives me 1. So now I'm going to go over to my graph, and I'm going to plot those ordered pairs. So I've got negative 4, negative 1 right here, negative 3 zeros here. And then at negative 2, 1, I'm going to put an open circle there because this piece was defined as x values less than negative 2. Okay. So that piece will keep on going to the left because that's where all the x values less than negative 2 are. So now I'm going to do the same thing for the second piece. I'm going to make a table. So now I want x values greater than or equal to negative 2. So I'll do negative 2, negative 1, 0, and 1. And again, I'm going to have a closed-in circle at negative 2 because of the or equal to part. So if I substitute in negative 2 into this function, I'll get negative 5, and then negative 4, and then negative 3, and then negative 2. So now I'm going to plot those points. So negative 2, negative 5's here, and it's a closed-in circle. Negative 1, negative 4, 0, negative 3, 1, negative 2. And remember, it's all x values greater than or equal to negative 2. So those x values keep going to the right. Okay, so that's the graph of this piecewise function. I can see I have two different pieces. All right, number 3. Here I have 3 pieces. So I'm going to do this one first. So I'm going to choose some x values less than negative 3. So I'm going to do negative 5, negative 4, and negative 3. Keeping in mind that at the value of negative 3, I'll have an open circle there. Now here it says f of x equals 1. That means my y value is always 1. There's no variable in there. The y value will just always be 1. So as I go to graph that, negative 5, 1, negative 4, 1, and at negative 3, 1, I'll have an open circle. And that's where my x values are less than negative 3, so we go to the left. All going to do the second piece. So now I've got x values between -3 and 0. So I'm going to have -3. Now notice it's going to be a closed-in circle because I have greater than or equal to -3. And then I'll have -2, 1, and 0. At 0, I'll have an open circle because here I just have less than, and I don't have the or equal to there. All right, so now I'm going to substitute those values into the function. So that function is -x. You could read that as opposite of x. So opposite of -3 is +3, and here +2, here +1, and then 0. So as I go to plot those points, -3, 3, -2, 2, -1, 1, 0, 0 will be an open circle, whereas this one was a closed one, and then I just connect. Okay, now I've got this last piece here. Okay, so I want all the x values greater than or equal to 0. So at 0, I'm going to have a closed-in circle, 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to substitute in those x values into that piece of the function. So 0 squared minus 1 is -1. I'll have 0. All right, so now I'm just going to go plot those points. So at 0, -1, I have a closed-in circle. 0, 2, 3, and then 3, 8 will be off my graph. So I end up having kind of half of a parabola there. All right, so that's it for Target 2 Notes. Hopefully by the end of this you feel fairly comfortable evaluating and graphing piecewise functions.